Welcome to the deep dive. Ever found yourself, chasing something, maybe for ages, you finally get it, and it's just not right. Doesn't feel like you thought it would.
Or maybe life just feels like this constant uphill battle, like you're always fighting, pushing so hard.
Exactly. Well, today we're going on a really fascinating journey to figure out why that happens. And maybe more importantly, how we can actually stop it.
Yeah, and what's really intriguing, I think, about the material we're diving into is how different its view of success and happiness is. It really pushes back against some core beliefs we have about effort, struggle, even why we help people.
That's right. So our mission today is a deep dive into Vadim Zeland's reality transurfing. We're focusing particularly on the ideas in his chapters, Goals and Doors, and the Heart and Mind.
Think of it as a kind of roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. A roadmap to figuring out what you genuinely want versus what society or, other forces tell you to want, and how to open those doors that are actually meant for you.
Effortlessly, even. That's a key part of it.
Right. We're going to unpack some, honestly, quite surprising, counterintuitive ideas that could shift your life from that feeling of constant struggle to what Zeland calls an ongoing holiday.
Sounds good, doesn't it? We'll be looking at what's truly yours versus what's been imposed, and really digging into why knowing that difference is just crucial for feeling fulfilled.
Okay, so let's start with this core conflict.
Yeah.
We need to meet the players, the heart, the mind, and these things Zeland calls pendulums.
Right. So first up, the heart or the soul. This is described as your unconscious, your true essence. It's like born trusting, totally unique. And it knows things. It feels things. He calls it the rustle of the morning stars, which is quite poetic.
I like that. And it knows what it doesn't want, too, right? Instinctive.
And then you've got the mind, your conscious intellect. Thoughts, logic, analysis, all that stuff.
But heavily influenced, right, by society, what we're told, what we read.
Totally. Massively influenced. And then there are the pendulums. This is where it gets really interesting. These are described as invisible structures, kind of energetic and informational.
Formed by groups of people thinking the same thoughts, acting the same way.
Precisely. Collective thought forms, almost.
Okay, but here's the slightly unnerving part I found. These pendulums aren't just passive ideas floating around. They're active. They need energy.
Yeah, they sort of compel individuals to act in their interests, not necessarily yours. And they feed on human energy, especially negative emotions.
With what? What kind of energy?
Dissatisfaction, irritation, frustration, anger, worry, fear. All that stuff we feel every day. They thrive on conflict, competition, constant striving.
Wow. So those daily frustrations, that feeling of being stuck.
Yeah.
It's not just my problem. It could actually be like fuel for these external things.
That's the idea. And recognizing that gives you power, potentially. You can choose not to feed them.
Okay. So how do we get here? The source says the heart and mind used to be connected.
Yeah, originally the idea is they were in harmony. But the mind got super focused on logic, language, the physical world.
And they drifted apart.
Exactly. And Zeland calls this separation humanity's greatest loss.
And this split is what the pendulums exploit.
That's the mechanism. They keep people under control by pushing rules, stereotypes, goals, things that might not align with your heart at all.
There's that analogy he uses, isn't there? About a drop of water.
Right. Man is nothing more than a drop that flies in from the ocean.
So just like a drop separated from the ocean loses that feeling of being part of the whole.
We lose awareness of our true essence when we're disconnected from our heart. And the source suggests this leads to a kind of tragedy for the soul, meaning you might waste your unique potential, your life chance, because your mind is just completely caught up, infatuated with these external pendulum games.
Okay, so if we're so easily swayed by these pendulums and societal pressures, how on earth do we start figuring out what we actually want? How do we tell the difference between a true goal and a false one?
Well, the book offers a surprisingly simple, kind of everyday test. Think about how you choose clothes.
Clothes, okay.
Yeah. Remember times you bought something you just loved instantly, no second thoughts? Versus times you kind of talked yourself into buying something?
Oh, yeah. Definitely done that. It's practical. It'll go with.
Exactly. And the key principle Zeland puts forward is, if you have to persuade yourself to have something, it is not yours. Simple as that.
So that persuasion, that's the mind overriding the heart.
Precisely. The mind analyzes, weighs pros and cons, listens to the shop assistant, your friend. It becomes, as he puts it, deeply asleep to what your heart is actually feeling.
Whereas if it's truly yours, there's just this instant connection. No need for the sales pitch.
It's that subtle rustle of the morning stars again, that quiet, intuitive knowing.
Okay. So what about the flip side? What are the signs of a false goal? A pendulum trap.
The source gives some really clear red flags. One big one is that feeling of obligation. It feels punishing and forced, like homework you don't want to do.
Yeah, like you should want it, but you don't deep down.
Exactly. Another is prestige and fashion. Things presented as fashionable and prestigious often lead you to crowd around other people's doorways.
Like pursuing a certain career, maybe a lawyer or doctor, because society says it's successful, even if it makes you miserable.
That's a classic example. Also, look out for goals that seem almost impossibly out of reach.
Why is that a trap?
Because our minds are weirdly drawn to things kept under lock and key, it makes the goal seem more enticing, even if it's just an illusion created by a pendulum.
Interesting. What else?
Goals pursued to prove something, either to yourself or others. That's usually about external validation, not inner calling.
Right, trying to impress someone or live up to an expectation.
And crucially, goals imposed by others, even well-meaning people, like parents. The source is quite strong on this, warning against rude intrusion into your soul.
So unless a suggestion just clicks, really resonates deep inside.
It's probably not yours. An incidental remark that resonates is different, but direct imposition, usually not your path.
Okay, this next one feels challenging. The idea about misguided altruism, that helping others first can be a false goal.
Yeah, it's definitely countercultural. The argument is if your primary goal is serving others' needs before you found your own path and fulfillment, it might be a foreign goal.
So responding to those appeals, help the animals, feed the children, could be problematic. How?
The source suggests it can sometimes be a way of compensating for your own spiritual emptiness, and inadvertently, you end up feeding pendulums that thrive on need and lack. It uses a story, kind of like Pinocchio, to show how trying to fix everyone else before finding your own happiness can lead you astray. The argument is that true, effective help flows naturally after you achieve your own goals and attract resources.
Wow, that's a lot to think about. Okay, any other signs of false goals?
A persistent inner tension. Despite maybe looking good on paper, there's an unease, anxiety, a slight shadow of doubt or heaviness.
You just feel it's not quite right.
Exactly. And they demand so much effort. It feels like a constant slog. You hit obstacle after obstacle. It leads to disappointment and depletion, but never happiness.
Okay, so what do true goals feel like then?
They bring a deep sense of the real joy of life, not just fleeting pleasure, but genuine fulfillment.
And the journey itself is enjoyable.
Yes. Your life transforms into an ongoing celebration, or holiday, as Zeland puts it. Happiness isn't just waiting at the finish line, it's part of the process, the present moment.
So things feel easier, less struggle.
Much easier. Obstacles seem to just melt away, or you navigate them without huge effort. Work doesn't feel like work. You feel energized, inspired.
And what about practical things like money?
This is fascinating. The source says when you define and move towards your true goal, resources will come to you of their own accord in great abundance. Money is seen as an accompanying attribute, not the goal itself.
Because the heart doesn't care about money.
Exactly. It can't think abstractly like that. It knows the thing it desires, the toy, not the currency needed to buy it.
So the advice is basically, aim high, don't hold back.
Absolutely. Order whatever you want, your own yacht, mansion, island, why not? If it's truly your heart's desire.
And pursuing these true goals, it leads to originality, to creating masterpieces.
Yes, because they come from that unity of heart and mind. And these unique creations are inherently valuable, extremely expensive in Zeland's terms.
Okay, so we've got the goal, hopefully the right goal. What about the path? The door, as the source calls it.
Right. The door is the means, the way you get to the goal.
Yeah.
And the idea is if your door fits your goal, things just flow. You might even get rich doing something you absolutely love.
So how do we find the right door? Do we have to search for it?
Actually, no. The principle is do not think about the door will find itself.
Really? How?
You focus on defining the goal clearly, feeling it, living it internally. Then something called outer intention takes over and essentially leads you right to the door.
Outer intention. Can you unpack that a bit? It sounds important.
It is. It's different from regular intention, which is like your personal willpower pushing towards something. Outer intention is more like tapping into the universe's flow. It's a passive force that arranges circumstances to match your clear, non-attached goal. It brings the door to you.
Non-attached. I mean, that leads to the next point.
Yeah.
Right? Reducing importance. That sounds crucial, but maybe tricky.
It's absolutely key. Attributing excessive meaning or emotional charge to a goal or even a problem creates what Zeland calls excess potential.
Like worrying intensely or desperately wanting something.
Exactly, or even being overly proud or anxious. It creates an imbalance. Think of it like static electricity building up. The universe, or balancing forces, as he calls them, will try to discharge that potential.
Oh, by throwing obstacles in your way.
Often, yes, or spoiling the outcome. It's that feeling when you want something too badly and it keeps slipping away.
So how do you reduce importance?
By cultivating a kind of inner emptiness regarding the outcome. Not apathy, but detachment. If you're empty of importance, the pendulums have nothing to latch onto. You essentially win their game and gain freedom of choice.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like letting go of the desperation, which ties into trusting the alternatives flow.
Yes. Life can be an easy holiday if you allow it to be. It means stop fighting circumstances, stop insisting things must go your way. There's a little story in the book about a worm.
Oh yeah, the worm on the pavement.
Right. It illustrates how these seemingly miraculous coincidences can happen when you just relax and tune into your target lifeline instead of trying to brute force your way there.
So patience is key here.
Yeah.
And non-attachment.
Definitely. Don't rush, don't stress. The right thing, the right goal is waiting. You need to abandon the desire to achieve your goal.
Hold on, abandon the desire. Doesn't that mean giving up?
Not giving up on the goal itself, but abandoning the needy, desperate energy of desire, releasing that tight grip on the outcome. It's subtle but powerful.
Okay. And staying aware.
Yeah.
Consciously checking in with your feelings.
Crucial. Wake up and listen consciously to your feelings, especially before big decisions. Zeland suggests we often live as if in a dream, just following pendulum scripts without realizing it, but we can wake up and take control.
This also means questioning those societal scripts, right? Like no pain, no gain.
Absolutely. Pendulums create these stereotypes. No risk, no champagne, gotta hustle hard. They sound motivational, but often they're provocative, pushing you into reckless action or false courage.
Which just feeds the pendulums.
Yeah.
With fear and tension.
Exactly. Breaking free from those limiting beliefs can literally open locked doors. The source uses a pretty stark historical example, talking about collective mind control in extreme situations.
Right. And just to be clear for our listeners, we're relaying the concepts and examples as presented in the source material here to illustrate the idea of pendulum influence, not making our own commentary on the specific historical interpretations used in the book.
Absolutely. The point's about the mechanism of collective thought influencing behavior. It also means embracing setbacks. Don't get derailed by mistakes.
See them as part of the process.
Yeah, take any setbacks as par for the course. They might even be the work of outer intention, guiding you, pushing you slightly off a wrong path onto the right one. True success grows from the ruins of past failures, as the saying goes.
They're being smart about it, too. Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Strategic caution, yes.
Yeah.
Don't burn any bridges. Always have backup options or alternative paths in mind. It actually calms the heart, reduces that dangerous importance, and stops the door slamming shut because you've put too much pressure on one single outcome.
So ultimately, it comes down to purifying your intention, making it less about needy desire and more about calm knowing.
Precisely. Intention is the will to have an act. By reducing desire and importance, you purify it. You act dispassionately like you're just calmly collecting mail you knew was coming. No fuss, no drama.
Okay, let's talk practical techniques. How do we actually cultivate this unity of heart and mind? One idea mentioned is allowing yourself to have the wizard within.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's basically saying you already have everything you need inside you. Like in The Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, Scarecrow, Lion, they already possessed heart, brains, courage.
They just needed permission.
Exactly. Permission to use what they already had. The source insists you are capable of anything. Don't let pendulums, or even your own logical mind, convince you otherwise with reasonable arguments about limitations.
So it's about giving yourself permission to access your own power. What about inspiration? We can't just summon that, can we?
Well, Zeland has a different take. Inspiration doesn't just randomly appear. It gets freed up when the importance potential drops.
So reducing that pressure allows inspiration to flow.
Exactly. So the advice is don't wait for inspiration. Don't do special rituals to prepare for it because that just builds up excess potential again.
What do you do instead?
Just start. Start the work, begin the process, and in the process of doing, inspiration will come to you. Take action, and the flow follows.
Okay, that makes sense. It removes the pressure. And then there's listening to intuition, that rustle of the morning stars. How do we hear that over our noisy minds?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Our inner monologue, that constant chatter, usually drowns it out. But the source says there are moments, little gaps, when the mind dozes or just relaxes its control. Maybe when you're waking up or doing something automatic. In those moments, a narrow window opens to the alternative space.
And that's when intuition, the heart's knowledge, can slip through.
That's the idea. You get those gut feelings, those intuitive hits.
And there's a practical test for this, the inner tension test.
Yes. When your mind makes a decision, immediately check in with your body, your feelings. Is there a vague feeling of inner tension, like a heaviness, tightness, apprehension?
That's the heart saying no.
An unequivocal no, according to the source. If you feel inner peace, lightness, expansion, that's a good sign, a yes.
And you can use these windows proactively with slides.
Right. A slide is basically a mental snapshot, a vivid image of your desired outcome as if it's already happened. You step inside that slide, feel the comfort, the joy, the reality of it. By inserting this into those quiet window moments, you tune your energy.
And affirmations. How do they fit in if the heart doesn't understand words?
Good question. Affirmations work, but not just by repeating words. You have to connect them to the feeling. Repeat, I am confident, while genuinely feeling confidence. Focus on the cause of the positive state. Everything is working out well for me. Feel the relief and ease of that.
So the feeling is the key.
Always. And remember the core principle. If your will to have is free of the desire to have, the needy energy isn't there. Pendulums can't hook in. You just calmly take what's yours, like picking up that letter from the mailbox.
This leads to another big pendulum trap, doesn't it? The pressure to conform, the do as I do rule.
Huge trap. Pendulums want conformity. Everyone chasing the same widely accepted notion of beauty or success. It creates imitators.
But the source says real stars break that rule.
Precisely. Stars become stars precisely because they do not follow the rule, do as I do. They find and follow their own unique path.
And everyone has this uniqueness, this frail.
Yes, every soul has its individual star sector, its own inimitable spectrum of emission, their unique essence. So the advice isn't to copy others, it's to embrace your own quirks.
And even things that seem silly. Characteristic foolishness.
Especially those. They might seem useless, but they could be the key to your true door. Maybe being the class clown leads to being a comedian. Loving clothes leads to being a stylist or designer. Zeland says, do not be afraid of looking unfashionable, be afraid of looking silly, by denying your true self.
This all comes back to self-acceptance, self-love.
Absolutely, that's the foundation. To love yourself means to understand your own uniqueness and accept yourself the way you are, warts and all, unconditionally.
And that famous saying, love your neighbor as yourself,
implies you have to love yourself first, right? Self-love isn't selfish, it's the prerequisite. When you love yourself, you radiate an inner light that naturally attracts positive experiences.
What about the guardian angel concept? Is that literal?
It's presented more as a powerful psychological tool, an externalization of your own inner support. Believing in it makes it real for you.
And these angels aren't affected by pendulums or balancing forces.
According to the source, no. They work only for your well-being. And there's a practical tip related to this.
For dealing with that excess potential.
Exactly. When you have successes, instead of getting overly proud, which creates imbalance, share the joy and credit with your guardian angel. Consider your success to be your angel's merit. It helps dissipate that potentially disruptive energy.
Wow. Okay, so bringing this all together, what's the takeaway for you, our listener? What does this all mean?
Well, I think it means you have a really powerful alternative framework here, a way to potentially redefine your whole experience of life.
You're not just stuck in that struggle, chasing goals that aren't really yours.
Exactly. You're not doomed to fight pendulums forever. You can break free, you can learn to tune into your heart, and you can allow your true path to unfold with more ease.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, it challenges that whole idea of the battle for a place in the sun, right?
Completely. That societal narrative that life is a struggle, that you have to fight for everything. This suggests true happiness isn't the prize after the battle.
It's found on the journey.
On the journey itself, but only when you're on your authentic path.
Which leads us to a final, maybe provocative question for you to think about. What if the biggest thing holding you back from your wildest dreams isn't the economy or your boss or lack of talent?
What if it's closer to home?
What if it's just that quiet voice in your own head, conditioned by years of pendulum messages and stereotypes, whispering that you don't really deserve those dreams? Or that they're just unrealistic, that it's not how things are done?
Yeah. Just sit with that for a moment and maybe consider what could possibly change, what might start to unfold if you decided, maybe right now, to just give yourself permission. Permission to have exactly what your heart is quietly longing for, without needing any external validation, without needing to prove a single thing to anyone.
Not even yourself?
Not even yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into reality transurfing. We really hope this conversation has sparked some new ideas, maybe given you some practical tools to start distinguishing your true path from all those illusions out there.
Yeah, keep listening for that rustle of the morning stars. Trust that inner voice. And just remember the core message is pretty empowering. You really do have everything you need to create your own ongoing holiday.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and definitely keep diving deep into whatever it is that truly makes your heart sing.